Good morning, I'm Greg Summers. Today we're going to work on a mobile, and a mobile basically is a piece of art that moves. It's mobile. I believe a man named James Calder started the mobile movement, and I think it was in the 30s or 40s, and after he got started with his, then it kind of caught on, and there's many famous different types of mobiles that we see around nowadays. A mobile is separate pieces put together to form one piece of art. And what I'm going to do is I'm taking a piece of wire here, and this simply is a coat hanger. It looks like this, and it's bent, basically straight, and then I put two loops, one at each end, which will hang our sculptures from that, and then we'll balance it and then hang it from any type of object that we have available. Okay, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a gourd, and I'm going to use a golf ball, and this is simply for a demonstration. First thing I have to do is put a hole or a hook, and I use a little screw eye here, into the golf ball, and if I'm lucky I can just take that and push it in. Oops, didn't work. Okay, so now what I have to do is take a drill, and I'm going to drill a small hole just in the skin of the golf ball. I don't want to go too deep, just enough to break the skin so that I can take a regular screw eye and twist it into the golf ball. And twist it in. There we go. Just like that, so I have something to hang it on. And then basically what I need to do is I'm going to take a couple fish leaders, and these simply are pieces of wire that have a hook at two ends, and they're very, very useful for doing this type of work. The first one is a little clasp, and I can put that through there like that, snap it shut, so I can hang it like that. And then the second one goes over the wire like that, so I can hang it down. It looks real, let's call it professional then. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take the same one and go over the other end. I need to bend this out a little bit. Take the leader that I had, put the end over the wire, and then I can take this end and put it over the gourd. So now, holy mackerel, how'd that happen? No. One. And two. So now I have these two things hanging. What I do now is look and try to find a fulcrum point, or the center where it balances at, and that one basically balances about right there. I'm going to bend this so I still have that fulcrum point. And then I'll take another leader and hang it over there. So I have it like this, so now whenever the wind blows or there's movement, then these two objects will pivot, and they'll also spin around each other. So I can hang this from the ceiling. There's two types of mobiles, basically. One that is hung or hangs from a ceiling point, and the other one is one that pivots on a base. Okay, that's the simple lesson. Now what we're going to do is make a mobile that has a theme. And the theme that I picked, guess what, is fish. And what I'm going to do is take a small little fish, this one here, which is kind of an ice fishing lure. And then I'm going to take a very large fish, which is simply a two-sided, I think it's probably a bluegill. And I'm going to take that, and then we're going to take a fishing pole, and we're going to put the two together and see if we can get it to act as a mobile. First thing I'm going to do is I attach a leader to the front of the pole, so I have something to hang the smaller fish from. And these leaders make it really easy because they simply snap on and snap together. So now I have, whoa, we got a big old fish here. So now I've got that one on there. And then I want to take the larger fish and try to hang it to the other end of the pole. And I'm going to simply take a string this time, right here with a little swivel on it. And the swivel is the same thing as a leader while I'm using a string on this one. Put that on there like that. Come on. Caught in the weeds there. And then I take the big fish and I punch a hole in the top fin wherever it's going to hang, depends on what position I want it to be in. And again, put the leader through it and snap it together. So now we have two objects hanging from the pole. And now all I have to do is take another piece of line and use it as a fulcrum point then. Now I'm going to have to lay this down. Feed this through. All the way down to the end, and now I have to try to locate the balance point. Oh, that's why it wasn't working. And this is kind of a trial and error thing. It just depends on where you want it to hang at. So I tighten that up. Okay, now I'm going to hang it from a hook here. And what has to be done is I'm going to adjust the fish in the back to balance the weight out. Okay. Then I have some extra string here. Cut that off. So now we have large fish, and whenever that spins, that causes the pole itself to spin, and whenever the pole spins, then it causes the fish to bob up and down, and we even get a little action on the rod. So now we have a mobile. And you can hang this from porch or awning or anything to catch the wind. Okay, now we're going, since we made a very simple mobile, we're going to make one that is kind of laddered or tiered, where we have many components attached together to balance off the larger component. The first thing I have to do, as I did, is I took a little heavy, hey, quit that, is I took a rod here and I simply bent the ends and loops just like we did the coat hanger. This one has to be a little bit heavier wire because there's more weight involved. So we have to balance that. The next thing I have to do is we take the objects that we're going to use, and these are some more ice fishing lures of different kinds, and I have to decide how they're going to be presented. Usually you put a larger one with a smaller one, and then you have to balance those, and then you go on to the next step then. So what we'll do is take some of these here and figure out which ones are going to go where, put those together, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, the first thing I want to balance in is I think I'll take the largest one here, and I'm simply going to put it on a leader and find a balance point. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to oppose it to, I think I'll try this one right here. A little bit difference in size, I think that'll work pretty good. Take another leader. Find the balance point on that one. Put these two together. And then I take the rod that I want to use and I attach. So I'm going to take the two here that I have, attach them to one of the rods that I've bent the hook into. And I have those like that. So first thing I want to do now is after I have those in place is find the balance point for this particular pair. And that's about right there. Okay, once I've found that, I'm going to put a bend in the rod so I know that those are going to hang pretty much balanced like that. And I'm going to set this one aside now. Here, I clean my table off a little bit. There we go. And put that one down here. That one's finished. Okay, after we have the first two on here, we find the balance point. And that's kind of trial and error. Find it right there, and I'm going to bend this down so I have a place for the fulcrum to be at. Then I take the next fish and put a leader on it and attach it to a rod. It's very important that the weight of the second layer that you're going to put on there has to balance out the weight of the first section of fish. So now, instead of putting another fish at this end, I have to put a leader and then I have to hook this leader to the first rod. So now when I take these two and hang them, the next fish has to balance, this fish has to balance the weight of these two here. So it goes like that. So I find that balance point, and it's going to be about right there. And that's where I want to bend this. So now we have two fish being circled by a third fish, and it's balancing like that. All right, and the last thing, I'm going to take another rod and a leader. And hook this to the rod. That. Okay, and then we take another leader with no fish, because this one here is going to carry the weight of all the rest of the fish. Now remember, we found the balance point of the last group of fish, which is right here. Put that on. Okay, I'm having a little bit of problem trying to keep the leaders onto the rod where they're supposed to pivot at or balance. So all I'm going to do is simply take a little piece of wire about the size of a twist tie and wrap that around and snug it up a little bit. That should keep that from coming off, and then trim it off just so that I can get it into the position as it's hanging. Okay, so now I have the two fish at the bottom, and they're balanced by the one fish up here, and now I want to take this fish here and I want to find a balance point up here. And that is going to be about right there. So now we have 4 fish. So I'm going to take that rod now and bend it, and then straighten it back out so I have a nice little flat spot to hang it from. And check it once. And that looks pretty good. So now this one is ready for a leader. Clip that together, and I'm going to take that little wire again and use that to lock it into position. Cut off the excess, bring it back up again, check it. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, now I'm ready to put this onto whoa, come back here, onto fishing rod. Since these are fish, we're going to use a fishing rod for this one here. I use this particular rod, and it'll have to be wired on. So I take a small piece of wire, I take that leader that I was using, put it through the swivel, and all these have little swivels on them, and these simply help the wire to rotate without causing any friction or cutting it in half, so the wire doesn't twist in two. So now let's see what kind of fish we're going to catch here. I hope it'll work. Come on. Big old fish. Okay, I've got all these fish, and it's a tremendous amount of weight here. I'm going to put that back down. So I'm running away. Okay, now I'm going to take this particular project that we had, attach it to the post. Okay, try to get everybody up here. Cap. Now what I have to do is I have to find the balance point between all of these, and that's going to be a little bit hard to do. Okay, now I'm taking the fishing pole and I'm taking a line that I'm going to hang it from, and I'm simply trying to find that balance point. And I believe it's about right here. Try to secure it a little bit more. It takes a very, very small adjustment to get everything to balance just the way you want them. What I want to do is get the fish on about the same level as the rest of them. Okay, I think that's going to be about right there. Now what I want to do is I need to secure this, and temporarily I'm just simply going to take a piece of tape and put that on there so the string doesn't slide. Normally I'd wrap this in a little wire or wrap string around it and then apply a little bit of glue to the string, just simply so it stays in place. Okay, so what I've got now, if you can see this, I have my larger fish attached to a fishing pole, and basically it's kind of chasing after the smaller one. And if you notice how it moves, everything moves independent of the other one, so they're all swinging in different directions, and that is caused by the wind. So when the wind hits the bigger fish, obviously it's going to make it move, which will also make the other ones move. So that's to me is the neat thing about mobiles, is that there's always some type of action going on. So my theme is the fish, and we have the larger one actually swimming out here chasing the smaller ones. You can hang these on porches, or I like to hang them from limbs of trees when they're outside, or I'll stick a shepherd's crook in the ground and then hang some from that too. They don't spin all the way around with that, but they always seem to go back and forth, and so that creates a lot of movement. Okay, for the final project here, we're going to use some discarded sports balls and make a quick mobile out of that, so you get an idea that you can make these out of anything. They don't have to be the same, but sometimes it looks better if you have things that are all related to each other. And as they move around each other, you could almost make us a planetary mobile then. I've already bent up some rods here, and we're simply going to take different size balls, put them together, find a balance point, and see how fast we can do this. Kind of cool. So I'm going to use a large basketball here and a smaller golf ball. The golf ball, I did drill a little hole in it, but I just tried to pierce the skin of the ball. Sometimes they have liquid centers, and you want to be careful you don't drill into something like that. So let's see if we can find a place where these balance with each other. And it's a little bit hard to do when you have very dissimilar weights involved. The size doesn't matter, but the weight is the important part. And I think that's about right there. Okay, that's good. I'm really going to bend this down. And that may look a little strange to you, but then I'll bend it back up. So there's our first one, and then we simply are going to take the second rod and hook it onto that one. Like that, and then we can use the wire again to lock those in place. I'm just going to use a little piece of tape to hold the leader in place until I get the project done. Okay, and then the next one that has to balance those two, we'll use this little bit larger ball, soft ball, and take that up and find the balance point. Wow, I got lucky, right about right there. It's a pretty old one. It looks like it's been hand stitched, and I don't know where I picked it up at, but at a yard sale or somewhere, and it just seemed to be a little different than most soft balls that you see. So I didn't want to damage it. And we got that there, so that's pivoting real well. And we're going to take our last one here and put the leader on it. And still use a piece of tape just to hold it in place, so it doesn't slide around. And I suppose we'll use gotta have a baseball. Okay, and of course that fell off. Take that hole. Okay, so now our pivot point is going to be way in here. The more you get on there, the more important it is to get that just right. And so it's about right there. That's doing pretty good. So we're just going to take that one there, hook a big old leader to it. Take another little piece of tape. Try to lock it into place. And then we have to take a pole then, and I'm simply using this is an old fiberglass tent pole, and it's one of those section ones with the little bungee cord or shot cord in between that holds it together, and it should be heavy enough to put all this together. And need to take a piece of wire, put it through the swivel, and wrap it around the end. Okay, so I had to use the bowling ball for the other end, and that's, you know, it's one of my favorite ones of my collection. So we got a bowling ball hanging at this end. I got a nice fiberglass rod, and then we got all the other ones hanging at the other end here. Just like the fish, but it's a little bit different theme. So of course you wouldn't want to stand under the bowling ball, but that's how it works. I get out of your way here. So you just have to find the right position for it to balance in, mess around with it, and that's part of the fun. You're just always changing things around.
Is that Tel-All pretty durable?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's one of those. It's a fiberglass rod, and they're really hard to break. You know, I wouldn't want to hook a train car to it, but for what we're doing here, it's pretty good. It's just I like fiberglass because it has a good bend to it. Sometimes I use a metal pole, but mostly old fishing poles or tent poles, things like that. It seems to work out pretty good. As long as the weight at this end isn't too heavy, this can balance it off. This particular mobile is one that doesn't hang. It's mounted on a pole, and it has a little swivel point here in the middle so that it can swivel up and down, and also it'll spin around in the wind, and it's simply mounted on a pipe. And this is one of the first ones that I've done. Okay, and that wraps it up for this edition, and I hope you enjoyed it and it was a little bit entertaining for you. I was going to make a mobile using little toy cars, and I was going to call it an automobile, but I didn't, so there you go. Have a good day.